Hey guys, SGT here. Very exciting call right now with Andy Hoffman to give us a precious metals update as we see gold breaking through its 200-day moving average and silver breaking its long-term downtrend. We've got Gerald Celente coming up, but first we just had to get Andy Hoffman. I think this is sort of an epic moment. Andy, how are you?
Good. Well, I mean, look, it all started last February with, this Humphrey Hawkins semi-annual economic testimony, which has become the cartel's go-to attack time. When basically the Fed chairman says absolutely nothing, just reiterates what they said at the last meeting. But, in the past year, when they started attacking from that point forward, in the past year, as you said, we've been below the 200-day moving average. And while they've been doing it, the fundamentals have only gotten stronger. The inventories have gotten drained. And now, as we've seen this week, the mining companies are writing off assets at a breakneck pace. And I think the world is realizing just how strong demand is and just how little supply is actually out there.
The last time you and I talked, I said, if there's any major breaking news, let's get you on again right away. And since we've spoken, the German regulator has come out and basically said that precious metals manipulation is probably as bad as LIBOR. It's certainly as significant. And that was pretty big news. There's been a lot of other news. 1250 in gold has really been a resistance point for a long time, and now we're over 1300. What do you make of this? Are we going to see much higher prices? Is this the beginning of much more to come?
Well, again, this was a last-ditch effort. I get asked all the time about are there people with grand plans behind the scenes, and I always say, based on Occam's razor, no, because there's no way that anyone could think of something this stupid, because Ponzi schemes always collapse, and basically what we've seen in the last year is, in my view, the end of the game. They kicked the can as far as they could. The only way to keep it going is to keep confidence in the system, and in taking the price of precious metals down, they've pretty much killed their own system, because now the supply is gone and the demand is taking off. It won't be long before this barometer of bad tidings shows what it should show, and you see what's happened to the economies of the world. You see the social unrest around the world. You see the emerging market currencies left and right collapsing, and you know that this is what they created in their last-ditch effort to buy themselves some time. So I really believe that the beginnings of hyperinflation are being seen around the world, and like John Williams, who believes that we're going to see it here in the States this year, I'm starting to believe that that's an increasingly strong possibility.
Yeah, you mentioned some of these currencies being devalued. Kazakhstan, a 20% devaluation of the currency. We see absolute turmoil in Argentina, Venezuela. The Canadian currency is down 10% in short order. I guess these people should have turned to gold and silver as opposed to putting their money in the bank, huh?
I mean, what happens is the reserve currency is the head, and the rest is the body, or the reserve currency is the top of the totem pole, and the cancer just crawls up the pole and kills everything underneath it until it eventually kills the head. I mean, you look at these emerging market currencies, or not even just emerging market. I mean, the fragile five currencies are where more than a quarter of the entire population of the world live. The average currency, the average currency in the world is down about 30% against the dollar in the past 2 years since Operation Twist in QE3 and QE4 and the European LTRO and Abenomics. Since that all started, 30% against the dollar, and just since last June, since a year ago. Not even a year ago, the average currency is down close to 10%. This is real inflation that's seen by the majority of the people in the world, and that's why you're seeing the social unrest, and that's why you're seeing, record prices for meat, for fuel, for the things that people need to live on.
I was listening to a weekly update with Eric Sprott earlier today, and he said, quote, "This is only just the beginning," end quote. We've been waiting for a very long time to see silver and gold bottom, and I really do feel in my heart of hearts as though we've seen it. I do feel like it's going up from here. Of course, the cartel could always pound us back down again, but those tricks are really getting long in the tooth, aren't they, Andy?
Yeah, because last year was the record demand for physical gold around the world by far. I mean, China's was double the 2012 level, which was a record level. I remember and it was even lower in 2011. That's when the price hit an all-time high. That just shows you how much paper they've thrown at it, and of course, how much of the remaining physical, they had some physical somewhere, and they obviously have used it, because right now we are seeing all the gold draining from the LBMA and going to the refiners, which are working at breakneck historic levels to send gold over to China. We're looking at almost no inventory on the COMEX, and we're looking at record Shanghai exchange deliveries. In fact, last April, which was the busiest month we had at Miles Franklin in 25 years, was also the busiest month in the Shanghai exchange for deliveries. Well, January, meaning the month we just ended, was bigger than April. So the point is, we are seeing a massive drain of inventories. And now we're starting to see the GLD start to increase inventories, meaning the institutionals are starting to buy into the market too. So that's going to be another source of demand. And the other thing that I mentioned in my piece today was, you mentioned Eric Sprott, those closed-end bullion funds, the FIZ and the PSLV, even the Spicer funds like Central Fund of Canada, they've been pounded by cartel naked shorting for the past year into discounts to net asset value. Well, guess what? They're all taking off right now. The Spicer funds are getting close to being a net asset value, and now PSLV is at a 4% premium. And you know that if it gets much higher than this, that Eric Sprott is going to do a major deal to suck up silver off the market. So I think we're at a point right now where something is going to give in the physical market. It doesn't even matter what the Fed says or does anymore. Everyone sees the world economies are collapsing, and everyone is starting to, you mentioned the German regulator. The whole manipulation scheme has gone mainstream. Even Bloomberg is talking about it. So everyone knows, and I think that there's not much left in this game.
Yeah, it's amazing to see this much going on just 6 weeks into the new year. I mean, it's going to be a very interesting 2014. Before we introduce Gerald Celente here and let you go, can you shout out the 1-800 number there for Miles Franklin?
Sure, 800-822-8080, celebrating our 25th year in business.
All right, man. Congratulations. Hey, thanks for taking the time to give us this update.
Thanks as always, Sean.
All right, buddy. We'll talk to you soon. And on the line now, guys, we have Gerald Celente and our regular contributor, Mark S. Mann, for a conversation I think you're going to enjoy.
Gerald, how are you?
Oh, I'm wonderful. Thanks for having me, Sean.
Thank you for joining us. And also on the line is your friend and mine, Mark S. Mann, one of our contributors over at SGT Report. How are you, Mark?
Great. Thanks for having me, guys.
Hey, buddy. Thanks for taking the time. I know that you are running around the country right now doing some duty, and thanks for checking in. You and Gerald had an opportunity to meet each other in person not long ago, which I think most of our viewers know, but you guys are actually buddies now.
Yeah, we have a lot of things in common ethnically, and we were raised in a lot of the same ways. So it was an honor to meet Mr. Celente, and he was extremely generous with his time, and I want to thank him again for that.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for coming up. We're paisanos, and we even come to our mothers come from the same area of Italy. So who knows? Maybe we're cousins.
Yeah, you never know. It would be great.
Well, fellas, we have so much to talk about. There's chaos breaking out worldwide. We see a pattern emerging here. We've seen it in Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, Syria, Iran. We see it in Ukraine. It's this exportation of terror of Western powers, Soros-backed, non-governmental organizations, tearing things up in these other countries. We can talk about that today. Mr. Celente, I thought we could also talk about your latest TrendsJournal called A Global Wake-Up Call, 10 Powerful Transformational Trends for 2014. But first, I just wanted to touch on some news that SGT Report broke. Another J.P. Morgan banker has died, this time 37-year-old Ryan Henry Crane, Executive Director of Global Program Trading. And there's not any information available about his death, but when digging into it, it appears to have been sudden and unexpected. And Gerald, this is the second J.P. Morgan death in less than 2 weeks. The first was Gabriel McGee, the head of IT at J.P. Morgan in London, and it said that he jumped off the top of the headquarters in London at J.P. Morgan. His death is under investigation, and an inquiry is being opened, even though it was initially ruled as not suspicious. It just seems we are on the cusp of total chaos, and what do you make of any of these banker deaths we've been hearing about?
Well, I don't like to speculate on somebody's personal life. You never know what's going on. And a lot of people are on the edge. And and for a lot of different reasons. You look at suicide rates, and they just keep going higher. And when you mention what he was involved with, global trading, let's understand that over $3 trillion was lost in the first month of 2014. So, the emerging markets are unraveling. And, these kind of things have a very serious effect on people. I'm not a conspiracy theorist in terms of, what's going on behind the scenes. I think what's going on in front of us is enough information, to make, some sense out of the sadness of this. Again, but, you don't know what's going on in somebody's personal life. Bankers, soldiers, how many people are killing themselves? But again, the reality is that, we've just seen these markets unraveling around the world. I just want to back up a little bit in talking about that. Look what happened last week. As I mentioned, in the first month of 2014, over $3 trillion has been wiped out. The emerging markets are all declining. Interest rates, they're raising interest rates in all these countries: Turkey, South Africa, India, Kazakhstan announced that they're devaluing their currency by 20%. All of the hot money that flowed out from the stimulus into these countries, now with the tapering, is pulling back out. And they're trying to do everything they can to salvage a very bad situation. So now, what reversed it? What reversed it? Because you're talking about a guy in global trading, the market's crashing. What reversed it over the last several days? Let's go back to Friday. Remember, this thing is unraveling. People are freaking out. Everyone on Wall Street, the markets calmed down around Tuesday of last week, waiting for Friday. Friday was going to be the big day because they were going to announce the unemployment numbers in the United States. The street had come out with an estimate of 189,000 new jobs for January. When the number came out, it was 113,000. And then they were speculating that December's numbers, which was 74,000 jobs created, were going to be revised very high. They had this guy, Zandy, he's all over the place. They always roll this guy out. He's one of those clean-cut looking guys, that they like those nice guys, He's always quoted. And when the numbers came out in January for December at 74,000, he mocked them on CNBC. I watched it. Oh, these numbers aren't real. They're going to be revised. They asked him, what are they going to be revised to? He said, 200K, quote. So now they revised the December numbers last Friday, too. They were revised upward from 74,000 to 75,000. The market skyrocketed on this news. What am I, stupid? How did this happen? Why did this happen? Everybody's numbers were way off. The job situation stinks. And the numbers go up. Yesterday, on Yahoo, ticker, headline, here it is, pop, not making it up. You know that guy Jim Cramer on CNBC, mad money, mad out of his mind, whatever he is? Right. Clown show, you name it, whatever you want. Freaks Tonight. Jim Cramer, yes, the market is rigged. Stock market's rigged. Forex we know is rigged. That's the currency trading at the point of 5.3 trillion a day.
The LIBOR is rigged.
The LIBOR is rigged. And a guy on the inside tells you, boys and girls, the market is rigged. So now we're looking at the market being rigged on Friday. That was the point that I was making on this. The market shouldn't have gone up on Friday. So now the markets are waiting for Tuesday. What's going to happen Tuesday? We're going to hear from the new Fed chairperson. She won't be called, she does not want to be called, she made it very clear, she doesn't want to be called a chairwoman, so she wants to be called a Fed chair. Mark would agree with me, maybe we could call her Facha Brute, but that's another story. Yeah. So now the Fed chair makes this lame speech in front of Congress about nothing. Nothing. She didn't say anything other than they're going to continue to taper. And if things really get bad, maybe you could expect more stimulus. And the markets shoot up 200 points. On what? Now, we move forward. Next day, the markets open up flat and go down. Why? What they did was they staunched the decline by, as Jim Cramer says, rigging the market. So, the markets are going down. The emerging markets are collapsing in front of us. You look at in Turkey, the Turkish lira is crashing. They're forcing them to raise interest rates. They raised interest rates from something like 7.5%. What do they usually go up? 0.25%, 0.5%? They raised them like 2 or 3% overnight. This thing is out of control. So now you're looking at gold. And gold prices keep moving up steadily. The only thing that's been moving up steadily since the beginning of the year. Now it's approaching the 1,300 mark. Could they knock it down? The game is rigged. But long term, you can see where it's going. And that came from the Yellen thing. Yellen bloody murder. That's what it is. It's bloody murder. A gang has taken over the country. And here's another piece of an ugly twist in the whole Federal Reserve takeover. The thing that the founding fathers fought about, that was the major political issue in every campaign throughout the 1800s, not to let a private central bank take over the country, and they did. As everybody knows that listens to your show, Federal Reserve is as Federal Express. So now, you know who they're bringing in as the vice chairman? Stanley Fischer. Hey, where was Stanley Fischer from? Oh, he was just until recently, the head of the Central Bank of Israel.
Yeah.
And where's he from? Born in Zambia. Hey, maybe he's about as American as Obama appears to be. And then as an Israeli citizen. Oh, yeah, but we gave him dual citizenship. I'm offended as an American, and it has nothing to do with being anti-Semitic. I don't want him from Italy. I don't want him from Ireland. If you're going to have a shill over there, bring him one from our country. What, we don't have anybody with brains over here? I make the point because it's a multinational takeover.
Yeah. Well, it is, and the game is truly rigged. I'm going to quote this from our friends over at Wall Street on Parade. Just last month, JP Morgan Chase acknowledged that it had facilitated the largest Ponzi scheme in history. Looking the other way is Bernie Madoff, a name now synonymous with Ponzi. That's my words, not theirs. Brazenly turned his business bank account at JP Morgan Chase into an unprecedented money laundering operation that would have set off bells, whistles, and sirens at any other bank. And the U.S. Justice Department allowed JP Morgan to pay $1.7 billion in fines and signed a deferred prosecution agreement, meaning no one goes to jail at JP Morgan again. That's the state of the state in this country, and the game is rigged, Gerald.
It's a fascist takeover. It's the merger of state and corporate powers. So these people say, oh, it's socialism. No, it's not. It's fascism.
And the more things change, the more they stay the same. Look at the way they rammed the Fed through on Christmas, the same way you always say they do it when everybody's not paying attention. Even though that was 100+ years ago, the tactics are still the same.
You got it. And then you had this guy come out recently, this, what's his name? He's a chairman, CEO of Nicole Miller, a high-end women's luxury wear, on CNBC. His name is Bud Conheim, with a K, but it should be a C. Conheim, con man. And he went out and said, anybody could Google this up on CNBC. Tell the poor to stop whining and belly aching. If you're making $35,000 a year, what are you complaining about? In other countries like India and China, you'd be considered rich. Stop all this belly aching. This guy actually said this.
Yeah. Well,
the 99%. Then I Google up or look up this guy. Here's another little boy, born on third base and thought he hit a triple. His parents had a 23-room mansion, 3 cars and a chauffeur, and he goes to Exeter. And that's the point. Harvard, Princeton, Yale, bullets, bombs, and banks. Mm-hmm. It's one club that's running the whole show. And not only here, they're the same people that are the diplomats, the ambassadors, and all of these hedge funds and private equity con men and con women. One club, and you're not in it, I'm not in it, Mark's not in it, and everybody listening to the show's not in it.
Yeah, to quote George Carlin, it's a big club, and you and I ain't in it. Hey, before we move on to something I want to quote from you out of the Trends Journal here on page 13, I want to just note that you tweeted today, kind of on this same subject, you tweeted that the AP reported Amazon to hire 2,500 new workers across the United States, to which you said, go to college, go deep in debt, get a degree in shipping and handling. There's a future for you. Let's talk about this retail Armageddon we're seeing around the country. JCPenney is ready to fold up shop. Sears looks like somebody lit a bomb off in the place. Amazon is eating everybody's lunch because they don't really have to ever worry about reporting profits for Wall Street. And I guess this is the future for the country, Gerald, is young people can go to college, get in debt, and then go to work for a company like Amazon in the fulfillment department of the warehouse.
Or Walmart.
Or Walmart.
Yeah.
Back on the plantation is the point.
It is. That's why I call it Slavelandia, which is one of our top trends. And it's worldwide. It's a multinational takeover. I'm reading an article in the Wall Street Journal 2 days ago, and it's about Heinz and how they've been bought out by the private equity groups, the guy from Brazil and Buffett, and how they're doing all this slashing, all these job cuts, plant closings. And you look at it, I'm reading this thing, it's every damn company is owned by a private equity group, a hedge fund, or vulture capitalists. This is new. This didn't happen when I was a kid. There was no such thing. Companies were owned by the people that own them. Not all of these people that get derivatives, borrow this money, and buy up firms, cut them all to pieces, and a takeover. And another story, Home Depot, hiring 80,000 people for the spring. Great. 80,000 people, you can make maybe what? You take home after taxes and you're only working part-time, $62.50 a week, and you're lucky you don't leave with a hernia. What are you going to end up with? Oh, you're going to go out and buy a new car? You're going to buy a house? And here's the point of this, Sean and Mark, is that 80,000 jobs, one company, there used to be a thing called hardware stores. You hardly see them anymore. There used to be a thing called stationery stores. Now we have Staples and Office Depot. It's a multinational takeover, and the slimers, the lowlifes, the Jimmy Carters, the Ronald Reagans, the George Bushes and other Bushes and Clintons, they sold this country out by deregulating all the laws that were put in place from the turn of the century, from the 1900s to the early 20th century, to protect us from the robber barons stealing and owning everything.
That's right. Well, as you guys both know, they're not done yet. They want it all, as George Carlin said, and they're going to get it from you. Take a look at the Trans-Pacific Partnership, the TPP, Gerald. If you think we're in chains now, tell people about the TPP.
Well, you know about it. I mean, it was on my mind as you would think, is speaking it. This is a multinational takeover. Yep. The laws that they're going to make over this supersede any country's laws.
That's right.
And it's again, and the big lie that one of the most disgusting human beings on the planet, Slick Willie Clinton. Yeah. Reagan and Bush couldn't sell NAFTA. Remember, I was down in Washington in these days, so I knew what was going on back in the 70s and 80s. They couldn't push it through. They needed a good slimer like Clinton and Al the Whore Gore to push this thing through. telling the people that it's going to create jobs. You don't want them dirty manufacturing jobs. We're going to give you clean service sector jobs. Yeah, like home health aides. Oh, yeah, and jobs in hospitality. That's a nice name for making beds in hotels. They sold this country out. Obama keeps selling it out with his trade deals, the one he's already pushed through with Korea. We're losing on that one already. The numbers are out. So it's a takeover. It's a multinational takeover.
Mark, feel free to jump in if you have a question, but I want to ask Gerald about gold. Gold is back to a 3-month high, strongly above resistance levels. We know that the German regulators have come out and said that the precious metals manipulation is probably as bad as LIBOR manipulation and certainly as serious. There seems to be a shift in consciousness, which ironically you write about on page 13, Gerald, but there seems to be a shift in consciousness about how the world perceives physical precious metals. The world is finally waking up to the fact that if you don't hold it, you don't own it. Paper promises for physical gold are worth about as much as the paper they're written on. What do you make of gold being back at a 3-month high, and what do you make of the future here in 2014 for the precious metals?
Remember, they could knock it down overnight. They could pop it $50, $75, $100. You have to get that straight. They could do it. We know it. The Federal Reserve has their own trading desk in New York on the floor. And the central banks don't want gold to go up. But then you pointed out the other point of it. The latest report coming out of China from People's Daily, the amount of gold purchased between 2012 and 2013, hard asset, physical demand, consumption in China increased 41% year to year. Demand is strong even in the United States. The mints in Austria, putting out the Vienna Philharmonic, and other mints around the world are working 24 hours a day, according to reports coming out.
Right.
Physical demand is strong. The paper markets, the naked shorts, they're manipulated. They have no connection at all other than throwing fear into people that would normally buy gold, thinking that they're going to lose. And a physical bet is different than a bet on the commodities, like a COMEX. And by the way, I began buying gold in 1978, and I parlayed a $5,000 bet to over $750,000. And then I woke up one day in January of 1980 and lost $250,000. So I remember when it crashed. Matter of fact, I bought on January 20th at the highest trading point of the day at 875. So I remember this really well. And here's the big difference. Back then, there was no Russia. It was the Soviet Union. And everything locked behind the Iron Curtain was, no business going on there from East Berlin east. There was no China. People are still talking about Mao Zedong. India? What was going on in India? Nobody knew. What I'm saying is now it's a global market. They only could control it so much. Back then, there wasn't that physical demand for it. The markets were very thinly traded and only mostly in the United States. Again, there was no China that is now on board to become the world's largest consumer of physical gold. Like that.
That's right.
They're going to overtake India. And of course, as you well know, in India, they're putting on massive restrictions because of the crashing rupee. To keep the money into the country, they've raised interest rates and are making it very difficult to buy gold. Gold is in very short supply in India. So even with this going on, physical demand continues to escalate. My forecast is you're going to see another tapering. And then you're going to see markets react as they have reacted. The emerging markets are going to collapse. They need this cheap dough. They're going to come out with a new scheme. We'll call it, Yellenomics. And it's going to be another stimulus program. When that happens, you're going to see gold skyrocket. And my breakout point for gold is 1475. When it breaks past that point, I see it going into 15, 16, 17, 1800s again, moving up.
Mr. Celente, I wanted to ask you a quick question about this, what I refer to as the German gold repatriation scandal. What message does that send to the rest of the world that we can't even give Germany 100 tons of their own gold back? What if we would do that to one of our main allies? What are all the other countries that have gold on deposit with the United States thinking right now?
Well, it's funny you asked that. I was in Munich when that story broke, and I was talking to at a conference there for precious metals, by the way, and it was outrage among all the people there, and so it's such a sham. It's going to take till 2020? They say to get it there. What the sailboats aren't working anymore? The guys can't row it over. I mean, come on. It's taken so long. So the story is they don't have it.
Right. And what, if you're any of the other countries that have gold on deposit with the United States, are they going to go away, Matt, or just go away? What are they thinking? Are they quietly trying to acquire as much as they can until, the big meltdown comes?
No, because they're stooges in the same scam. So the ones that did it was Venezuela. So when Venezuela wanted all their dough back from England, all the gold, they made fun of them. But Chavez got the gold back. The other ones are all stooges in the same game. Because when you look at who's playing the game, what are the Europeans? I mean, look at the European Central Bank with the guy that they got the head over there, that Shyster Draghi, this former head of the European division of Goldman Sachs. Who's the head of the Bank of England over there? Mark Carney. Carney, that's a abbreviation, a term, a slang term for carnival man. Another guy from Goldman Sachs. And look what the English did. I forgot who it was, Harold Brown or one of them, back in the late 90s. Brilliant. They dumped all of the UK's gold at the bottom of the market. There is no gold. Why? What's the big deal? Why can't we see what's in Fort Knox? I don't know. We can't show you. Who's we? What are you talking about? How come we can't see this stuff? So it's not there. There's nothing. It's the Wizard of Oz, man. At every level. They can't do anything. They're empty. They can't run Obamacare program. A fact. One of the greatest visual disasters in front of our eyes. They remember the war on drugs? Oh, that was a great one. Hey, how about those czars for education? Really fixed it nice. Hey, how about those losing wars, you guys, over in Iraq and Afghanistan? You haven't won one since World War II. You lost Korea, you lost Vietnam. Oh, I forgot, you won Grenada. They're losers. There's nothing there. The whole system is being run by sociopaths, psychopaths, inept and incompetent people. And if you don't believe me, listen to that moron, that Undersecretary of State Nuland over in Ukraine, talking to that little boy they call the ambassador, what's his name, Pyatt, on how they're basically planning to overthrow the government of Ukraine. And it's like kids talking. They make up slang names. And you listen to this guy talking, you wonder he must have the size of cojones of the mothball. Mm-hmm. So these are the people, there's no Illuminati running this show. It's right in front of everybody's eyes, and no one wants to call it what it is. I'm listening to Kerry. Kerry comes out and says, the United States is going to defend Japan against China. Oh, we are? What do you mean we? U.S. means us, not me. Don't count me into this deal, man. It ain't going to be you. It's not going to be any of the congressmen's kids or senators' sons. And we'll get our ass kicked.
And
what are you kidding me?
We can defend them, but we can't help them clean up Fukushima, right?
Right.
Think about that.
This is a tragedy that's destabilizing the entire planet. Every week they come, well, you underestimated the amount of radiation going into the... This thing is out of control. And when I say the United States would get its ass kicked in a war with China, in 2000, I was brought down to VMI to talk about New Millennium Warfare. I've been writing about this for years. This is like, they say the generals are always fighting the last war. This isn't a war about aircraft carriers and tanks and F-35s. This is a missile war. It's a war of weapons of mass destruction, biological warfare, nukes. They're out of their minds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and China.
Got the Fifth Fleet. You could take the Fifth Fleet and shove it up your, what are you kidding me?
Yeah, Japan is building 2 aircraft carriers, I think to the tune of $2.5 billion. Yet they're cleaning up Fukushima with duct tape and mental patients and homeless people. If that doesn't tell people that the military-industrial complex is running the world, I don't know what should.
Well, I take exception to one word you said, running the world. It should be ruining the world.
Yeah.
Just a little change of that spelling of that.
Yeah.
But no, I'm only teasing. But they're ruining the world. And you look what's going on in Greece. The latest reports coming out. Here the country's going bust, and now all these scandals about the defense. They have tanks with no ammunition. They have bought submarines that are in dry dock. This is all baloney, fear and hysteria. Hey, watch out for those toothpaste bombs. Who can make crap like that up?
Well, Gerald, let's wrap up on what may be a good note. On page 13 of the Trends Journal, you write, wake up call, confronting the abuse of power head on, a collective consciousness taking hold accepts no outcome other than change. And you write that the future has never been clearer. If societies continue on the current path set by major political leaders, financial powers, multinational interests, and military forces, we can forecast with full confidence that tomorrow will bring more sorrow than joy, more hardships than prosperity, and more war than peace. We need to take this thing back, and we need the whole world to wake up and stand up.
It starts on the individual level. You're doing it, Mark is doing it, I'm doing it, the staff at the Trends Research Institute and TrendsJournal are doing it. A lot of people are doing it. And as I keep thinking about this, there are people that are interested in what's going on with vaccines and how they're destroying people against fluoride. We need to come up with a unified issue. And when the Occupy Wall Street movement happened, one of the things that they used to make fun of was that they're not focused. There's no message. It's too diverse. They did come up with something great, by the way. The 99% and the 1%. And that sticks in people's minds, and even the major media speaks about it, and even the shows on the business angle speak about it. So I believe that in order to change this, and speaking as an American, what we need to do is focus on one issue and bring as many people as we can from all those interest groups that have a common interest but speaking about different issues to speak on one goal, one objective, and that being broad enough to bring everybody in. So some of the things that I'm thinking about, and one is direct democracy. Let the people vote. You want to go to war, let the people vote. They just had a direct democracy vote in Switzerland, whether or not to let more immigrants or less immigrants come in. People voted. Less, a lot less. Now, if that happened with political parties, they'd say, they're right-wing extremists. But they didn't get that. That's what the people want. You want to go to war? Let the people vote. You want to bail out banks? Let the people vote. You want to bring in immigration? Let the people vote. So the issue for me, the big one, is direct democracy. And number two, that anyone running for elected office, from local to national, from councilman to president, you are forbidden to belong to one of the gangs, the Republican and Democratic gang. And I call them gangs just like I would call the Bloods and the Crips gangs, because they're murderers and they're thieves. Their record of mass murder is in front of all of us. You know, I'm really good at killing people, says the President of the United States, as he sends drones into foreign countries, as they troop surge in Afghanistan, as he launched the war against Libya. And of course, the ones that preceded him as well, Bush and Clinton. Then you also have thieves, too big to fail. I got an idea. Let's steal the people's money and we'll give it to the banks. And of course, Obama carried on with that. And as everybody knows that's listening to your show, the only reason why the equity markets are so strong is because all the stimulus that comes in at 0% going into the banks and that they could gamble with. End of story. So they're murderers and thieves. So I would say two things: direct democracy and anyone affiliated with the parties should not be able to run for office because they are not representatives of the people. They represent the most powerful and the richest.
Well, gentlemen, I want to thank you for your time. It was a pleasure to have you both on. Gerald, we could certainly talk with you for another half hour, but I know we're up against the clock. I want to thank you so much for your time, and remind people who haven't already subscribed to the Trends Journal how they can do so, will you?
Yeah, TrendsJournal.com, TrendsJournal.com, and besides the publication, every weekday we do Trends in the News broadcasts from the Trends Research Institute at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, and it's news that's way ahead of the average news that you get and puts you on top of the trends.
Yeah, it's the best in alternative news, the real news, and that's what we try to do too at SGT Report. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you taking the time to watch this material or listen, to read Gerald's material, to visit us every day. Mark, I want to thank you for your time too.
Thank you, everybody. Everybody, this is what we need to do is keep everybody awake and aware of what's going on. So, we appreciate all the views and comments that people make. And, we're grateful to have everybody participating in the fight for the truth.
That's right. And as we like to say, we're all in this mess together. And as Mark likes to sign off his articles, stay safe.
Stay safe.
And may I say that Mark said two very important words there: awake and aware. Because when you're awake, you're aware.
Damn straight. Thank you, Gerald.
Thank you. Thanks, Mark.
Take care, Mr. C.
Bye, guys.